Hello. All right, we are live according to interface here. Not our typical interface, but it's pretty to be joining us as we get started with the inaugural preseason Afterburn soccer live show stream. Whatever, too many shows there, but I'm excited. FC Dallas, North Texas SC, Major League Soccer. A lot of things to talk about. Nathan J. Hill typically have a different little bit of setup, and so life is a bit discombobulated. So maybe like this for a couple of weeks until it's all ready to go. But with us again, returning from last season, is Jose at El Chico Carmona on Twitter, and Tommy LaBeouf and at Tom_FC Dallas on Twitter. Yeah, I think got it. So we're excited to be back here with a new name. In the past, we were Big D After Dark, friends at Big D Soccer. Encourage you to continue to follow them, but we're trying something different. Website afterburn.soccer. We're releasing some fun content and would appreciate everybody subscribing for free. What we do, or even if you don't love what we do, please subscribe. All right, we're here to we're sort of getting warmed up here. We're getting into the flow here on our soccer show, and we'll be. But let's just get our feeling. Saturday night soccer for FC Dallas' season 2023 kicks off. Feeling the excitement, guys?
No, actually, because it's been such a quiet off season.
I'm getting excited about it. I'm looking forward to the season starting. Yeah, I get all fired up about it. So yeah, I'm pumped. I'm ready.
Yeah, I need to clarify. I'm always excited for the soccer, but I was kind of trying to let me explain myself. We haven't seen the ads. We haven't seen the team play in preseason. It's been very quiet. So I think that while you are excited for the games to begin, there's been nothing like, hey, here's the new Star Wars movie coming out. There's been no advertisements, anything like that, right? It's been total hush. And they went to Spain. It was
I have to agree.
Close, So
I have to agree somewhat with Tommy. A lot of that had to do with the fact that Apple was kind of asked everyone not to stream, their preseason matches, and I think it's going to be a one-time thing as they were getting themselves set up, and this last week was like a test run, so you can see what's coming up, and that's just their preseason coverage was just spectacular. So if that's their preseason form, you have to get excited for what they're going to be able to do once the regular season starts. But yes, I agree. I think there was also some miscommunication with the team also, like when they went to Spain. I know Buzz from Third Degree. He wasn't aware that he could have gone with the team and helped cover that team. So, and he wasn't alone. I'm sure there was others, because that's what management and whatnot said. But Nico was okay with it. So that's something that wasn't clarified, and apparently will not be an issue going forward. It was just basic miscommunication. There could have been more coverage in Spain, just that people covering FC Dallas were told one thing when in reality, if they would have just asked Nico, there could have been better coverage.
Well, I think it's a good topic to be. We think about preseason grades, which is kind of ludicrous in this sport. Nothing matters. It's about getting guys fit. It's about keeping your kinds, but also and maybe running out some guys to see how they will fit team camaraderie. So, FC Dallas lost to Houston for their final preseason. A disappointing game because of the type of goals given up, but also not out because both goals given up are kind of fluky stuff. Spain to kind of give the team a chance to try their tactics against other squads. All in all, an interesting preseason for FC Dallas. Tommy, to your point, yeah, it was a little quieter signings. It seemed like FC Dallas came in with a pretty solid roster come field. But you know, so you mentioned that you feel like you're both Tom. Are you worried at all? Or are you just like, hey, it's been too quiet for me?
Well, we haven't had a major signing, like to make you excited. All you got to hope for is that this is going to be the breakout season for one Velasco. I'm sorry.
No, I disagree. I disagree with you, but carry on. Just
yeah. Thank you. Let me finish. I think there's a lot of pieces in place to be competitive, and there's a lot of pieces not in place to not be competitive. So I think that I'm a little concerned about the extra games. I'm a little concerned about the back line. We don't have Hedges. I'm not a big fan of Martinez. And it doesn't seem like we have a bona fide player back there in the back line. Maybe Tafari's up and coming, but he hasn't proven it yet, full time. So I think that's a risk back there. But there's definitely talent up front. I really, remember the first year when Michael Barrios has always set the example. He played almost the whole year, didn't do much, and the next year he was on fire. Maybe that's what Alan Velasco will bring this year. A little bit more experience with this league. A little bit more grown up, bigger body.
Yeah. Jose, what about you? You feeling a little worried?
I'm not
you
worried
feeling
at
hopeful?
all. I'm not worried one bit. I actually, this loss against Houston, I had zero weight as far as I'm concerned. One, they're playing a rival, and they're not going to do anything that they would actually attempt to try to win a game against them. They're not going to show them. So they're basically just going to go out there. They're like, hey, these guys are going to play us tough. If they want to come out and try to win, that's great. We're just here to basically, work on our basics, work on our fitness. So they're not going to want to give anything away for the next time they play against Houston. The other thing is Nico likes his privacy, and this game was televised. So I guarantee you, he certainly didn't want any team to take this video and say, this is how we're going to beat Dallas. This is what they do right. So it was basically out and out, just a preseason, get in shape, go out there, let's not show too much. We're going to work on some stuff that we may or may not use. And we don't want teams to basically, come out of this going, oh, we got to worry about those guys. So I take zero from that match. A win in a preseason match is not a thing. It's all about getting everybody out there, getting everybody in shape, getting everybody on the same page. So no, I'm not concerned about that at all. And there was a big signing. they did the trade with Slovenia today, and for Jimenez, and I'll tell you why that's a big signing. It's a big signing because it killed two birds with one stone, and that was we had a glut of number 8s on this team, and you remember that last year you had Siki and Cervania were battling it out, taking turns, basically rotating for that starting spot until Leggett gets here. So now you got Leggett as your starter. One of those guys had to go, Siki or Cervania. One of them was basically not going to get the minutes. So they had to choose who's going to be the guy behind, the main backup, And of course, Cervania is the one guy that honestly, if you've been paying attention in the offseason, he's one of the guys that everyone said he's probably the guy that's going to go because he's got value. He's still growing. He may be better served going elsewhere. And we all know that Dallas was looking for a backup to Jesus. So they're bringing Jimenez, who by the way, I've been researching to see what Toronto fans are saying, to see what happened with him. He had 9 goals last season in 33 games, technically 10 if you throw in the Canadian Championship. So he was a 10-goal scorer. The problem is he scored 7 of those goals in the first half of the season. I think in the first 9 games, in all honesty, and then disappeared and only had 2 goals the rest of the year. And what I'm hearing from the Toronto fans is that had to do with a change of play style. He had somebody feeding him the ball in the first half of the season, but remember that Toronto had their big name Italian players arrive in mid-season. At that time, Toronto switched to a more wings centric style of play, and suddenly the focus wasn't feed the guy in the front line. It was feed the guys on the wing. So there was a shakeup in the style play of Toronto, and it's basically you're looking at a player who, like Slovenia, is probably better served by going somewhere else. And I think it's a great move for FC Dallas. They offload somebody that was really not gonna. Was gonna lose playing time. Slovenia was gonna lose playing time, and they filled a gap that they had with a backup. And I would say, with his credentials, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a backup. I would say he looks like a guy that you can rotate as a starter. You know,
Right.
with his
Yeah, I
clearly
haven't had a
being
chance to look it up or have my opinion yet. I mean, I didn't want to downplay it as not being a big move,
yeah.
but I think it's a good move for
It's
sure.
it's a big
I agree
move
with you.
from a needs point of view. This is
Yeah,
not a guy
absolutely.
who anyone's gonna expect to come in and be a difference maker, but he's a guy that feels a big void in the team, and at the same time clears up a glut of talent at the 8, which by the way, FC Dallas Academy has tons of 8s coming through the system. So you get that bottleneck, and you got to clear that bottleneck, and that's what they did with Cervania.
I was just
Good luck.
pulling up his data on Wikipedia, and he scored a lot of goals. I guess wherever he was playing, I don't know where he
He
might
was in
Spain,
Poland.
in Poland. Okay,
Poland.
and last year he
Right.
scored 9 goals with Toronto, which is
Most of them in the
that
first half of the season, like I said, before
for
they
1 year with Toronto. So it wasn't like he was playing with a club he's been with for a while. So new time to gel. 9 goals is not
Mm-hmm.
bad,
and
and
you
I'm
also
sure he
have a
makes great
guy
paella.
you also have a guy who basically has his first year of playing in the MLS, in MLS under his belt now. So
So look on the surface, just glancing at it, it looks like a good move. Definitely from the point of need and extra players. Yes.
yes.
Yeah.
Sorry to have hijacked your questions there, Rev. Carry on.
I mean, it's because I do think that's the big news of the day. I agree with you. Like Cervane certainly is now a veteran player in Major League Soccer, and he's had moments then too where he just looked like he couldn't figure out. Tough to see. I mean, but he reminds me of all the other midfielders that looked for that opportunity. So Victor Yoa, of course, Kellen, a couple of guys that bounce off the page, but teams will need guys. Toronto's they're sort of rebuilding. They're sort of putting a squad back together. So they get a guy who at least depth for them, maybe a starter, maybe it'll push them into a new
What I've been
thing.
told
But
what I've been told about Toronto's situation is, unlike Dallas, they did not have a true backup for 2 of their midfield positions. So Cervania steps in immediately as the number 1 backup at 2 potential spots. So from a playtime point of view, Cervania is jumping into a great situation where he's the clear first guy off the bench at 2 spots for Toronto. And we're here in Dallas, he had a 50-50 chance to get in he was basically battling to be the number 1 backup, and he was losing that to Siki, who brings a different style,
I would say
than
the
the other
other thing
players.
is the guy that we just signed. He's 29 years old. He's 6 foot. I mean, he's not old. He's
No, he's a solid veteran.
yeah.
And like I said, I think it's a good move. And of course, Toronto's paying part of his wage.
Right.
And
So
I will say this. I know we talked about the back line and we just had this move. I never felt like FC Dallas would go the whole year without making a trade or a signing. It may not happen until the window, but I think that they're going to do what they're going to wait till they get the person they want. I'd rather them sign the person they want than sign someone we don't want. So I believe it'll happen, but we have
and they make smart moves. I mean, they're not gonna make the sexy move. They're not gonna go get the. Not always. I mean, they last year they made a couple sexy moves. So
made a
we
lot of
have
good moves.
we have an open DP spot. So there's still room for them to make a sexy
Yep.
move at some point.
So
But I think where I'm normally they need to get the DP now before the start of the season. I'm actually okay with them waiting until summer to get someone because you got to take a look at it from Dallas's perspective. They didn't expect the team to gel and be a top 3 team in the Western Conference in Nico's first season. Their goal was to just make the playoffs, finish 7th or 6th. They surpassed that. So now they're basically at a point where they have to reassess and find out, did we overperform or is this really a top 3 Western Conference team? And that's where they're at. They're basically having to take a step back, which doesn't look as sexy because we're like, well, okay, they need to. And Dallas is saying, no, we need to find out if this is the team that we need, and we have an open DP spot. If we are really a top 3 team in the West, and we get that DP signing right, that could be what propels us
Right.
to be contenders. So though, from my point of view, I think Dallas is taking a step back and reassessing where this team is because they are ahead of where they expect it to be in their building procedure.
Well, I like Jesus Jimenez as a signing, multiple reasons. Another player with the name Jesus on the roster, and I think that's it's a good thing.
Giovanni?
But I think even from what I've seen, Jesus first, and he's he's coming along, but the hope is that he gets back quite quickly. And if not, you didn't want to be in a situation where he was next guy was Mulatto, who's probably not ready for significant minutes. It's a tough situation, right? Tough. So they got it. They filled that hole. They got some, and that he's Spanish is a very interesting thing because comfortable.
We're signing
right?
all the Spanish players.
Yeah, he'll get more comfortable working with Nico, and so Nico has FC Dallas or North Texas, I guess, announced the signing of Coach Javier Cano. Stepping into
more Spanish
that role
yes.
as they guy. And what was interesting in my interview with him, some of on Big D Soccer, that I think the disconnect between Nico and with Paul Mudakal last season, wearing of values, of ideas, of being able to really coaches, and you get the sense of Javier with this background. It sounds like he and Nico will have a lot in common, and they'll be a lot easier to figure out how to best utilize North Texas in the midst of a long season, get young guys minutes and stuff like that. So I'm excited about this hire. It seems like the vein of a Lucci, of which we thought Lucci would a year or two before he jumped up to FC Dallas. That didn't happen. But so what are your thoughts, Jose?
So I'll jump in this right away and say I'm working on a piece, where I'm doing the top 10 preseason teams coming out of MLS Next Pro, and just so you know, North Texas is one of those 10 teams. However, unlike the other teams, where there's plenty of evidence to show that they've done the necessary roster build to be considered a top 10 team, North Texas doesn't have that. There's nothing pointing out, nothing I can say, look, that's a great signing. There's nothing there to say this team deserves to be a top 10 team. Until you look on last year and realize that with with Coach Ka in charge, you had the disconnect between the senior team and the reserve team, and there was little to no movement between the teams.
Mm-hmm.
And if I remember correctly, the only movement that I ever saw was players from North Texas going to train with the senior team. But other than the, 3 guys that were loaned down, there was no other movement between the reserve team and FC Dallas, which is what a reserve team's supposed to be there for. So despite that disconnect between the two teams, North Texas still was one of the top teams in MLS Next Pro last season. And this year, with the signing of Coach Cano, that's one of the reasons that signing was made, is to fix that disconnect. And that's one thing that we have heard multiple times this preseason from Coach Nico, is there will be movement between FC Dallas and North Texas. There will be players that will be loaned down for a week or 2 weeks to get in shape or whatnot, because Coach Nico wants to, and this we've been hearing about this, he wants to have a shorter bench. He wants to have a shorter rotation. That leaves a lot of players that are not going to be able to go out on loan, who will need to stay sharp and will need to go down to North Texas and get minutes.
Yeah.
So that's the big win here. A reserve team should not be disconnected from the senior team, and I have nothing negative to say about Coach Ka, because he did such a wonderful job that we did not know this was happening until after he was gone, and then we're like, what happened? Everybody's like, hey, there was a disconnect. And now you go back and say, yeah, there was no movement between the senior team and the reserve team, and it was all done just based on the strong academy and their strong recruiting, their strong management system they got in place for recruiting players from South America, bringing them in on loan. So I'm excited. I think North Texas will again be a top 10 team, maybe not a contender, because their priority is developing players for FC Dallas, and that's, even though whatever people think lowly of MLS Next Pro, look at all the players that have moved up. You've got Mulatto got signed, you got Kamungo got signed. Parker apparently is too good for North Texas now, and if he's not with a senior team, he's probably going to be loaned out to a USL championship team. So North Texas is doing the job. I'm fired up for this season. I think they'll be a fun team to watch again.
And did I see Diego Peruzzi on the roster?
Was that
Diego Peruzzi? Did I see him playing on one of the scrimmages?
There's some yes, but that doesn't mean he's going to be with the team. There was
I don't know. I just know we kind of grew up with the family, because my daughter played with
there was actually
the
a lot of academy players that got minutes with North Texas during preseason, and I think that's to see which of them are willing to come in and play with the team more. So we saw this last year too.
It's going to be that if you look at North Texas roster right now, 6 players, 8 players. I mean, it's but you add in Carrera. I don't know if you know what.
The thing is you've got, like you said, you've got about 8 players on the roster right now once that Henry kid joins up. But you already know which players are probably going to come down. That is it Corca, that center back, he's probably going to come down.
Right.
Norris is likely to get minutes with North Texas, even if it's not a full season loan. He's one of the players that's probably going to come down at least during home matches. Carrera, you've got whoever is on the short end of their first round draft pick
from India,
he'll come down.
Definitely.
So there's going to be about 4 or 5 guys from the senior team
Yeah.
that will either get loaned down for the full season or will bounce back and forth for the team.
Yeah, I think Scott would have probably gotten some more young, but we wish him a quick recovery after a really tough injury. Uh, yeah, Kumungo and Mulatto, I bet they'll get some more minutes, even though I think they have proven kind of above that level. It'll be interesting to see kind of.
Great point.
Yeah.
About Tarek Scott, who I expected to be loaned down to North Texas and be Mulatto's replacement on North Texas. And now that's a big blow to both FC Dallas and North Texas, because I think Tarek Scott would have played for them this year. He would have been this year's Mulatto. And
Yeah.
he actually had a big growth spurt, so he's a lot bigger and more physical. He's a lot, a more imposing person now than he was last year. And then he has the injury that's basically taken him out for 9 to 12 months, which is, I hope he recovers. He's a player with a huge upside, and it's hard to come back from something like that.
Well, let's get a couple more topics before we close out this preseason. We're just trying to get fit here too, just like FC Dallas and North Texas. We're just trying to get. By the way, I did see this interesting comment. I guess it was from Miami Neville, or that the playoff. The rumors will get updated from Major League Soccer. There'll be a best of 3 series, but which is a little strange. I don't know. Maybe they're waiting to announce that this week in the lead up opening weekend.
Yeah.
But a lot of question marks still about. It's going to be a different season. A lot of games to be played. This is going to have to rotate. So we're going to have to use this bench. And so I think they're trying to put together a squad with that kind of depth,
Well,
for
I think the big deal with that, the big holdup is MLS has to basically, I'm sure they are in contact with the player union, because you go from, hey, playoffs, play one match, and if you lose, you go home. But now you say, oh no, you have to play X amount of games once you're in the playoffs. And I'm sure the player union has something to say about that, and say, hey, we already have this glut of games. Is it wise to suddenly give our players who have played one of the longest seasons that they've ever played all these extra games? So I'm sure that's something that there's a lot of wheeling and dealing going on in the back that, of course, MLS is not going to share with us. And I don't have any problem with it. I also want to add, by the way, that people aren't giving MLS and Liga MX credit for the Leagues Cup. I think it's genius of them to stop both seasons. Both Liga MX and MLS will stop playing for that. And while all the people that are rolling their eyes now at this competition will change their mind when suddenly it's the only show in town. You can't just start watching and go, well, I'm just going to watch the Liga MX games that are on, because there are none. I'm going to watch the MLS games. There are none. And the people that are watching the Bundesliga, they're not going to change. They're going to keep watching that. But the MLS players, MLS fans, and Liga MX fans that want to watch a game, there's only one show in town, and it's going to be the Leagues Cup. And I think that's brilliant. That's something that people aren't really giving them credit for. They're going to be the only show on, and you may not want to watch it, but you're going to watch it, begrudgingly or not. And the only real question is how seriously are these teams going to take it? The fact that there's 3 CCL spots available means that's going to guarantee that there's going to be certain teams that are going to take that very seriously. More than likely, teams that are struggling, that are not, that are off to a rough start, are going to want to use that as a launching pad to success in the second season. That's something that people have to pay attention to. Is I don't think it's going to be the cluster F that everybody thinks it's going to be. And it will be the only show in town. So people will tune in whether they like it or not, because I know on Saturdays I'm going to be jonesing for a soccer match, and I'll be like, oh well, There's a MLS Liga MX match going on. I'll watch that.
Yeah, I do like it in Europe. They do that all the time in Europe. They have these tournaments, the Europe Cup. We don't really have that relationship with Mexico where we're intertwining with that. And I think the more the games are more important, like we
It's the
always talk
start of that,
about
though.
MLS needs regulation, promotion because it makes the games more important. I agree with that. And while it isn't that, it does make the games important because you win, you go on, or you lose. It's like a tournament. It creates
Yeah,
more people watch the NFL playoffs. I don't watch the NFL anymore. I think it's terrible.
yeah,
Anyway, but
I do.
people watch the playoffs because it's more important, right? So I think Apple, the deal with Apple,
Right.
the league, it's going to create more interest. Probably initially more from the Latin community with the Mexican teams, but hopefully it feeds over to the U.S.
The I'm not a pro rail guy. I get why people love it so much. I do, but it's not a United States thing. It's not. All the top leagues in the world, financially speaking, are located here in the United States, and not a single one of them has pro rel. The NFL doesn't have pro rel. Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, none of them, and they are all financially better than any league you can mention. Even the almighty powerful English Premier League would be a lesser league here in the United States, out out uh, financed by at least three or four leagues here. The NFL alone is richer than the top five European leagues that
Yeah,
everybody's talking about. I'm just saying, your MLS, that's where you want to be. You're not trying to compete with the English Premier League and Bundesliga. Everybody sets that goal. That's not MLS's goal. MLS' goal is to compete with the NFL and Major League Baseball.
yeah.
And when they get to that point, if they ever get to that point, they'll by default surpass all these European leagues. That's their ceiling. Their ceiling is number one financially league in the world because of where they're based. And they know it. The problem isn't that. The problem is that we all understand that and we all hate the fact that they're doing it at a snail's pace. they're like, okay, guys, you can stop raising the salary cap by like 500K or a million a year. Why don't you up it up 5 million or 10 million? We know you can, but they're not, and that's the only thing it's an artificial wall holding the league back.
I always
And the
thought MLS
reason,
could do better with keep a tradition. Like FC Dallas used to be hoops. This was discussed on another podcast. But I always felt like one year, when they first started out, they had the game solved by the PKs, but not the normal PKs. What do you call them? The shootouts, whatever. The shootout PK.
Mm-hmm.
They've always changed every year, and we're getting another change again. And there's no tradition. I mean, and even the uniform, the jersey kits are changing.
but
Keep it
how long
red.
did it take some of your
There's no
signature?
tradition. And
How
I
long
think
did
that
it take some of these signature teams that you see out in the world? How long did they take them to get their signature colors? And these guys have been around for over a century. MLS is still a infant league. I mean, let's face it,
Yeah.
it's only
they still have
25
time to
years.
build that. They still have time to build that, and I don't have a problem with it. I think I appreciate it because it makes us different. Everyone knows when they go to watch Manchester U, they know exactly what they're going to get year in and year out. Here, you think your team is going to compete for the title, and they might not. They might find themselves not even making the playoffs because of the way the league is set up for parity.
Yep.
No, I also want to say the best thing that Major League Soccer has going for it, which is what everybody in the world knocks them down for, by the way, is any argument you make about which league is better. Every other, not everybody, but pretty much every European person is going to say, well, our league has this one or two teams that are world contenders. You guys don't. So that's what Major League Soccer is not going to have one team that dominates They're not going to have a Bayern. They're not going to have a PSG. They're not going to have
I don't agree with
a
that.
Rangers.
I don't think it's a good thing to have that.
I think it's a good thing. I actually saw a podcast where they invited a Scottish player, former player who played in MLS and played in Scotland, and they were comparing the Scottish Premier League to MLS, and the guy asking the question expected there to be an argument, expected the Scottish player to support the Scottish Premier League and make it a fight. But that's not what happened. The Scottish player said it's not even close. He says, you guys all say, oh, Rangers, Celtic, Scottish Premier League is better than Major League Soccer. But he says, take those two teams out and the rest of the league is shit. And that's the problem with some of these leagues. They're so top heavy, and that's all their fans see.
No, I agree with you 100%.
The fans of Rangers and the fans of Celtic will never agree that MLS is better. But you take those guys out, and all of a sudden the rest of their league isn't so good. These guys are beating on the rest of the league, on their leagues year in and year out. And
MLS has made some good strides. Number one, I'd say Austin. There's never been a professional team in Austin until MLS, and look how popular it is over there. I mean, it's untapped market, and it's created a rivalry now between Houston and Dallas, the three-way, and it's going to continue if they bring San Antonio. NFL will never have where every city has a team in a professional league. It's going to eventually get that way. And the other thing I like is that they also do the colored uniforms now, visiting away. How boring is it to watch a league where the visiting team always wears white? You know, the colors doesn't have to be white on the field. You know, MLS has made some good strides in different things. They are, I think they've grown more than the NFL has grown in the last 15 years. I think the NFL is just static. And actually, I think it's going down in popularity.
The NFL's at the top looking down at everybody. It doesn't really have to grow anymore. but yes, I see what you're saying. Is the leaps and bounds are there.
There are some things I saw in the NFL game, and I said, oh, they got that from the soccer games. I think one was the theme that was played after goals, the little instrumental thing. They started using that. There's some other things that they have stolen from MLS, to be honest with you. In soccer in general.
Okay.
I think MLS is still trying to find its
yeah, I agree. Like its voice,
who the league is. Go ahead.
And so, I'm just with you. I just think it's going to be interesting to watch, especially if they continue to tinker with the playoffs. Because I'm always curious, like, now if it was clear that it felt like last season it was just broken. We need to tinker with it. But if it's like, hey, we changed it a couple of years, and then we're going to change it, just give us some explanation. And if you want to bring more players in, you want to make sure every playoff team has a home. I was actually the great article out there. I might link it to the Afterburn site as well. But a guy who started a semi-pro club up in New York. Somewhere he posted a blog about, hey, how much to run your own your minor league soccer team, and it's way down the level, next pro and everything, but about a revenue of $100K a year. But we would break even, if not come out in the black, in one extra home match, even a playoff home match. We would have probably lost a little bit of money on the year. They did make the playoffs, but they didn't. So even at that level, will mean a lot of some additional revenue. So that I kind of thought, well, maybe that's what MLS playoff teams, at least one home match to generate some extra cash. But we'll see if that's why I'm curious. But all right, let's two more quick things. But will FC Dallas miss Matt Hedge preseason with Sebastian Biaga, who is a fine signing? If he was your third center back, I'd be like, he's going to start. I'm not super confident yet, although he's and I don't know what's up with Tafari yet. So this point, yeah, we're a lot, especially in the first half of the season, I think. What do y'all think?
I would agree. Yeah, I would agree. I think that and I said that initially, the back line, although I don't think it's going to stay like that the whole year. But other than that, they got pieces in place that can do the job. From top to bottom, they have a good roster. I mean, Areola, Ferreira, Velasco, legit, Pomacall. I'm forgetting the back that we got from, what's his name, from LAFC. We traded for Hollingshead, who's our replacement. He's
Farfan.
solid. Yeah, the keeper is solid. It's just, and then we got rid of we have Tomasi, and now we have another guy competing for that spot. And
Yeah.
Lawson Hedges was on. I have no problem with Hedges leaving. He was old. He doesn't have many years left, and he was injury prone. Still a great player. I love Hedges. Hate to see him go, but I understand that, and I think that whatever we start the season right now is not how we're going to end. And Martinez, I just seen too slow in pace. He's great with the ball, other than that, but I just think he's a liability with pace, and I think that needs to be upgraded. I think we need to replace him and get another guy back there.
So, my opinion is that I don't really think they're going to miss Matt Hedges. Not to the extent that everybody thinks they are. I mean, there's people that are outright panicking over like, "Oh my God, we don't have Matt Hedges. We have." Siki is due. He's done what he has to do to be given a shot to be a starter, and it was smart to bring in somebody to push him for the starting job and not just hand it to him. That was to my and Martinez. His flaws are the same flaws that he had when he got here. He hasn't gotten any better. He hasn't gotten any worse. You know exactly what you're going to get from him, and I'm okay with that. I think you know exactly what you get from Martinez, and I appreciate knowing what I'm going to get from a player. Kind of like you brought in someone to compete with Emma, but at the end of the day, you know what you're getting from Emma, even if he's not a Reynolds or a Cannon. You know exactly what he brings to the table and what you're going to get from him. So you brought in somebody to compete with him and try to beat him out or force him to improve. And that's the same thing that happened with Tafari. Even if he's not the starter right away, I expect him to be the starter at some point. And that was coming. I always thought they were gonna get rid of Martinez and slide him in there. But people forget that it's really hard to find a good left-footed center back in this league. It is. So at the end of the day, I would argue that keeping Martinez was more important than keeping Hedges because at the end of the day, Martinez is the harder of the two to replace. And the guy that they brought in, I can't pronounce his name. I will get it eventually. But the person they brought in from LA, he's capable of playing both spots. And maybe he's not at the level of Hedges or won't fill his shoes. But he can play for Martinez or for Tafari, which makes him far more valuable for a team like this. So I think we'll be in excellent shape. And while I do expect the defense to maybe allow more goals than last year, I also do expect the attack to be at a higher gear this year than last year, and I think that will compensate for that. As long as the defense has got their kinks ironed out come playoffs time, I still think Dallas will continue to be a top 3 team in the Western Conference. I know people are saying there's teams behind them that'll surpass them and this and that. The way I see it is LAFC and Austin have not gotten better. And the teams behind FC Dallas, in theory, some of them have gotten better, but I'll believe it when I see it. I don't think Dallas has changed. I think Dallas is the same team we had last year with a chance to be even better than last year. The question is, how are the teams around them doing?
All right.
I would say same team as
right.
last year, but they've gone through their orientation, right? I mean, it's all a new team last year, and they did very well. But you got people like Palmacall, who was just coming off of an injury and kind of went through the year without getting injured. Now he's set to have a good year. We have Velasco, who had his introduction to
Velasco.
MLS, can't dribble one-on-one. He learned what he needed to do. We're going to see what he's going to do now. We got Jesus, who really had his first year up top without having anyone else really pushing him.
This will
But
be
he went to
Leget's
World Cup.
first full
He
season with
he
the
had a
team.
lot of minutes last year. Leggett is new to the team. He came mid-season, and then Areola still. So you have 5 players I just named off that kind of went through warming, getting used to the locations. They could all have breakout years next year, this season.
All we really need is 1 or 2 of those guys to take a step forward. We don't need all of them to take a step forward. We just need the guys that don't take a step forward not to take a step back. As long as that happens, as long as the players that played last year play the way they did, and we have a couple of these young players take a step forward, Dallas will be in great shape.
I would say one thing I don't like is that Nico uses a short bench. It's great for so long, but when you get to the playoffs, my concern is that Jesus played all these minutes. They played all these minutes, and when playoffs comes around, it's like legs can only go so far.
My concern is that he's using the short bench and will use that as an excuse to treat the league's cup like the U.S. Open Cup and use that to say, okay, you guys that have played all these games, you guys will not partake in this tournament to the extent that everybody, that you would a normal game. We're going to give the guys that aren't getting playing time.
We shall see. We shall see.
I'm just saying, because at the same time, if you think about it, if you're doing good, let's say FC Dallas is doing good come Leagues Cup, why would you then go all out for the Leagues Cup? You could say, hey, this would be a great opportunity to see which young players that have been playing for North Texas or have been on our bench, which ones of them are ready to step up. So let's give them playing time. I'm just saying, we don't know what the approach is going to be, but a short bench to me means more than likely they're going to use those games to rest the short bench and then try to find players to enhance that bench for the second half of the season.
I cannot wait to see the changes.
But we don't know.
I can't wait to see the team, how they look this year, with the changes. And is it better?
I think, like I said, I think the reason I'm excited for it is, while this is pretty much basically the same team as last year, this team has had a full team to gel to learn what Nico wants. So some of the things that they were learning last year, they'll have basically rehashed that in the preseason, and they'll be ready to basically expand on what they learned. So that's the excitement for me.
Well, look, let's leave it there tonight. I know there are more things to talk about. The Monster, it's going to be in the stadium as well as some other delicious treats. So they're talking about stadium that I think in a future update. But for now, this is our preseason. We're getting into flux, but we're hoping to be here next Monday and weekend, of course, against Minnesota United. Which, guess what? They're missing their best player. I haven't heard any later news that if he showed up to camp or not, but for a nice beginning of the season for FC Dallas, if Reynoso doesn't show, what a mess.
That is the good thing. The bad thing is that it's a road match, and it's really hard to win on the road in MLS. So
I had my wires crossed. I thought it was at home. And that's a wash. All right, well, good. Well, still, it'll be fun to kick this season off. Bridge now. It's a new era for Major League Soccer. It looks like it's going to be a great. I had on there plenty of stuff, and of course, we want to invite you all to here on Afterburn.soccer and follow posts and things that we're posting each day, and we'd love to have you join the community. Thanks, Jose. See you next week.
See you guys.